You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Joe George here with you. You find me on Twitter at Joe George Radio. The Bulls lose 139-117 to the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that has now won their 11th game this season when being down by 10 points. Look, the Bulls played well for parts of this game. The first half was good basketball. They were up 2 going into the fourth quarter, and then the Cavs went absolutely insane mode and just dominated the Bulls there in the fourth quarter. So we're going to hit on that. We're going to talk about what we saw from some of the reserve pieces in this game, not the guys who just were forced into the starting lineup because of all the injuries, but also the guys we still saw coming off the bench like Talen Horton-Tucker in this game played really good basketball, or at least took advantage of the minutes that were given to them in this game. A+ tank loss as well in our best and worst moments of the game, plus sprinkling a couple new elements to the show tonight as well. So let's talk about this game. The Bulls lose 139-117. They outscored the Cavs in the first quarter. What was the first quarter? I can't talk to start the show today. First quarter total, 29-24. The Cavs scored 115 points after the first quarter. The Bulls scored 117 total in the game. So that's what happened in this one. It started off good. The Bulls, the Cavs couldn't hit anything. It was kind of just a clunker really on both sides, I would say, but the Bulls took advantage early on of the Cavs, and then the Cavs at the end, they show why they're the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. They showed in the end, it doesn't matter who they're playing. They're going to get hot at the right time, and they're just going to find a way to win basketball games. And that's just what the Bulls allowed them to do tonight. And look, this is a team that, you look at the starting lineup in this one. We've seen a bunch of different starting lineups because of the trade deadline, before and after with injuries. Tonight's starting lineup, Tre Jones, Coby White, Dalen Terry, Modest Buzelis, and Zach Collins. Even after the deadline, never thought it would get to this point. But look, this is just what happens. Patrick Williams and Vooch may be back at some point after, during or after the Florida trip. We know Ayo is now out for the rest of the season, at least for the next 6 months. He'll be ready for training camp, but he's got a long road to recovery. Lonzo Ball missed this game. Kevin Huerter missed this game. And this just was the talent deficiency really kind of, I think, front and center for the Chicago Bulls. There's really no other way to spin this one. This is a good tank loss. You saw moments in this game. I think we have to focus on here to start Zach Collins. Zach Collins played really well in this game. He had 8 points. Early on in the first quarter, he had 7 rebounds. 5 of them were offensive rebounds. So this is kind of what I think we're seeing the difference between Collins and Vooch in terms of the athleticism. He had some really nice moments. They obviously on the TV broadcast, they focused on the one where he sealed off his defender and allowed Coby White to easily get to the lane for a layup. Zach Collins just does some of that stuff really well. He moves a lot better with the basketball. I think he moves better without the basketball on the offensive side, and he's good defensively. He's not a great player, but Zach Collins has been kind of the bright spot, I would say, around, obviously Giddey's out for this game, but, Giddey, this recent stretch he's had, has been really good, but Zach Collins has been a bright spot for the Bulls. And you think about this team next year and what it's going to look like, most likely at that point without Nikola Vucevic, you're okay, I can get behind the idea of watching Zach Collins night in and night out. We know what the Bulls are going to be next year. They're not going to be good next season either. They're probably going to be in the same position they are this year. They're going to be, even if they trade Nikola Vucevic and some of these other guys like Lonzo Ball, they find a way to move on from Patrick Williams, even if they move on from Coby White. I don't know if they're going to find a way to tank out to the very bottom of the Eastern Conference just because it is such a disaster below them. No matter what the Bulls do this season right now, they are just locked into the playing game. At one point when it looked like the Cavs are going to win, in my mind, they're going to have 3.5 games on the Nets and the 76ers. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and barring, we're live here, so I guess the Nets could, in theory, come back versus the Spurs, but they were down 15 the last I checked as we went live. So you think the Bulls are going to still be sitting 2.5 games up in the play-in, but that's just not where you want them. It's just where they are because of what this team has done. But for tonight's game, Zach Collins played well. Modest Buzelis, not a great night shooting the ball from the outside, but the thing I liked about Modest is we saw some of the different moves in the post, I thought, in this game where he used his length to his advantage. Kind of like those like up and under layups that he was getting with his left hand. We saw a couple times in this game. So it was nice to see that from Buzelis. And even when he doesn't shoot the ball well, like that's at this point in the season, at this point in the Bulls' year, and really throughout the year, I don't want to see Modest Buzelis ever be shied away from taking shots when they're open. Like that's what they should still be focusing on the most right now, is what this guy can do. But just all those injuries, even if everyone's healthy, the talent deficit from Cavs versus Bulls, that's why you lost this game tonight. It's not about really a lot of X's and O's, because you played well through 3 quarters for the most part. I mean, yes, they got you there at the end of the third, to get it back into within striking distance, and even at the end of the first half as well, where Garland hit 3 straight shots to close the gap in a major way for the Cavs. But in the fourth quarter, the Bulls couldn't shoot. They have been terrible the last 3 games from the 3-point line. They have been really just an awful basketball team from 3 in their last 3 games. Tonight they go 11 for 44 from the 3-point line, 25%. And this is where, like, when they show the graphics about like where the Bulls sit in the top 3 in the league in most attempted threes, I will always go back to this. Like, it just doesn't really make logical sense to why you would do that when there's not enough talented shooters. Like, yes, Kobe White can do what he did in the previous game, hit all those threes in a row, play really well. We've seen Josh Giddey go through stretches. Of course, we had Levine here earlier this year. He could go on rampages from the 3-point line. So can Vooch. Modest Buzelis can at times as well. But realistically, like, this is a terrible team from the 3-point line. And they didn't have the worst size matchups also in this game, and they just settle. They just settle for threes all the time. It's just what the Bulls do. And I'm just kind of numb to it at this point, because it's just like there's no point of bashing my head against the wall in frustration of a team that, just wants to rip threes constantly. That just shouldn't be. It's really like a high school basketball team. No offense to the Bulls, but like high school kids probably shouldn't be shooting threes like the Golden State Warriors. Frankly, neither should the Chicago Bulls. Like, it's just they're not good enough from the 3-point line in a game also where, like, you just didn't need to be. You didn't need to be taking all those threes because you have the game in hand, or at least in a winning position up until the fourth quarter. So just, they let it go in the fourth. They just got outplayed, they got outclassed, and they got outmatched by a team that's obviously significantly better than them. One of the new wrinkles we're going to add to the show right here. Let's get to our Locked On Sports Player of the Game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Locked On Player of the Game today. We are going to go to Zach Collins. 20 points, 12 rebounds. Started the game, like I said, very well for the Chicago Bulls. You really saw his impact. It was 8 points, 7 rebounds when the Bulls are up 24-20. So immediately in this game, he's making an impact. He has 5 offensive rebounds, so 5 of his first 7 rebounds are on the offensive glass. Yes, he only ends up with 12 on the night, and he didn't score for a while either. He kind of did the Vooch thing, where he's just not used for most of this game after starting off successfully. Not that I would expect Zach Collins to ever have the kind of importance to the Chicago Bulls offense that Nikola Vucevic does at time, but started off well. Obviously kind of went MIA for a while, but ended up with a really good stat line on the night and played good basketball all around for the Chicago Bulls. So he's the Locked On Player of the Game without a doubt for this one in the Bulls' 139-117 loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right, we'll take our first break here. When we get back, let's talk more about these reserves, some of the observations from this, guys that stood out just besides Zach Collins, and a couple of other new elements to the show we will add in as well in the second segment of today's show. That's next here on the Locked On Bulls postcast and the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Whether you're looking for pizza, wings, burgers, whatever you want for a watch party, you can use this Dash Pass the next day if a player scores 50 or more points in a game the rest of the regular season. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more points in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off any order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. All right, let's get right into one of the new elements to the show here, our turning point of the game.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
So I think this one's pretty simple here. Even though the Cavs took over there in the fourth quarter, the Bulls were playing pretty strong in the first two quarters. And then I think what happened there at the end of the second quarter, where Darius Garland scores on 3 straight buckets to end the quarter and just closes the gap significantly right there, that is really when it kind of got out of hand, or it felt like it was going to get out of hand or out of control for the Bulls. They just weren't going to be able to hold on to this lead. If they were going to step on the throat of the Cleveland Cavaliers, they had kind of missed their opportunity when Garland hit those shots. Obviously, we saw Donovan Mitchell get a little banged up in this game. Like, they're not healthy as it was, and you think the team like the Cavs might not take the Bulls necessarily seriously in a game like this, where they're the top seed, you are the 10 seed, and really you're not a threat to them in theory on paper. So the end result is not really surprising at all. Again, just the way they played in the fourth quarter versus what the Bulls can and are capable of actually doing right now. I want to talk about some of the other reserve players besides just Zach Collins, who's been thrust into a starting role for this team. What we're seeing from these guys, and it really goes both ways. Some of them took advantage, some of them didn't. Dalen Terry, I want to start with him. Not a guy taking advantage of these moments. Like, when you think about the long-term ramifications of like this season, the Bulls' future, like what it's going to look like, Dalen Terry before the year, if you would have told me like who's someone that you're hopeful or you think is going to make an impact on this roster, he would have been a guy I bet on. Like, I like the athleticism, like the jump shot can look good at times, not great always, but the athleticism's there. He can do things offensively, defensively. He seems like he's got the making of what could be, in theory, a good basketball player. He's just not taking advantage of these moments like some of these other guys are. You know, whether it's Kevin Huerter, who's obviously hurt right now, Josh Giddey himself post-deadline, just Zach LaVine not being on the roster, or what Zach Collins did in this game, what Trey Jones did in this game. Dalen Terry is just not that. He's just not fulfilling what I was hopeful, that he would be doing this season. Like, we all knew how the season felt like it was going to go. And in the end, it was like, well, what are you going to see from Modest Buzelis? What are you going to see from, Ayo Dosunmu? What are you going to see from Dalen Terry? What are you going to see from the young guys on this roster as you think about the future? And I just feel like Dalen's been the one guy who hasn't got even close to what any of us would be hopeful for at this point. So he's not taking advantage. One guy who is, who it almost in a way doesn't really matter because he's an end-of-the-bench player. And it's also not a surprise, like season high in points, 25 points for Talen Horton-Tucker. When he does play, he does take advantage of his opportunities. He does travel a lot. I feel like he gets called for more traveling calls this season than any player in the NBA. I'm sure that's wrong, but it just feels like when he's out there for a significant amount of minutes, he travels at some point in a basketball game. But THT, he took advantage of his minutes tonight, 25 points, and you needed it when you're trying to win this basketball game. So that's always cool to see. I love rooting for a hometown kid, and thinking what he did from Simeon and now with the Chicago Bulls, and he took advantage of his minutes tonight, and not a lot of other guys could. So Dalen Terry is a downer in terms of guys who could take advantage of their moments. THT, he's a positive. We went over the Zach Collins stuff. Don't really need to go over it again. But also, I think even Trey Jones, seeing his role. He only scores 9 points in this game, but his stat line is 9 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. And what I also like about Trey Jones a lot, and this is where he fits well into, at least for the rest of the season, now that Ayo's out, the role of that. I like just the pace that he plays with when he has the ball in his hands. It just feels like when he gets the ball in transition, the Bulls collectively just get up the court faster. And it seems a little bit more organized at times, where some of these guys get a little out of control. We know Kobe White and Josh Giddey can obviously be guilty of that. But Trey Jones does a really good job finding guys in the open, getting the ball down the court quickly. And now we've got back-to-back games with really sick alley-oops to Modest Buzelis. The last one was fun because it was closer to the hoop, and Trey Jones just kind of lobbed it up there for Buzelis. The one today, from beyond the three-point line, he threw that thing way up in the air. Modest goes up and grabs it. That was a great play. Probably the best play of the game for the Bulls in this one. So that's not been a fun thing to watch as well. Obviously, we saw that for so many times, even though it was limited at the same time, with Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine. Like, that's kind of what the vibe I'm getting from Buzelis is, whether he's trying to put someone on a poster, he's going up for an alley-oop. Like, he is kind of the only guy on this team that is, like, can't miss, must watch. I would say, like, when Modest gets the ball in his hands, like, I just kind of perk up a little bit because I just want to see what he's going to do. And he's another one, too, where, like, yes, he didn't shoot the ball great tonight. He was 1 for 7 from the three-point line, but 7 to 17 overall, 17 points. Again, like I said in the first segment, like, thought we saw a couple good post moves tonight, which is something that he needs a lot more of, instead of just trying to dunk over people, which he can do, but it's not always going to work. So I thought we saw some good stuff from him, and I do think, too, it's like when you think about this team and the three-point shooting, and that's where, yes, I don't need Miles Buzelis to shoot 7 threes in a game. It'd be nice if, he was 3 for 7. It wouldn't feel as bad. But, again, he's another guy that just, like, he plays basketball the way that I want to see it be played. Like, selfishly, I want to see a guy cutting to the rim and getting after it and being open on passes and things like that, backdoor cuts. And he does that really well in this game, and in every game he plays, it feels like. And that's how the alley-oop dunk became an opportunity for him in this one. So that's kind of what I was thinking, just like looking at the reserves tonight, how they played. Jalen Smith, 13 points, 11 rebounds. He leads the league in guys with, I gotta get this right. He leads the league in reserve players guys coming off the bench with 5 rebounds in a game. So Jalen Smith has the most of those games this entire season. Again, not to like wanting to give them any credit because we all obviously know what the Bulls front office is. It's not good. I do like the Jalen Smith find. Like, as again, probably should have traded him at the trade deadline to a contender. Feels like a contending team would like a guy like Jalen Smith on it. But I do want to say that is a good move, actually, that the front office made. I've enjoyed watching him play this year for the Bulls. Kind of curious if he's one of the guys I'm probably most 50-50 on, I would say, about this offseason, about like if the Bulls will actually trade him or if they will even consider it. Just feels like that's one where, like, you're not going to have loyalty to, like you do some of the other players that you've been stubborn with. The asking price isn't ridiculously high, so you're not going to make the mistakes they've made with guys like Levine and Vucevic in the past, or currently with Vuce, specifically, where you're asking for too much. But Jalen Smith's one where I've enjoyed watching him play this year. I feel like he fits it really well, fits this team really well at times, like what they need. And not that he's ever going to be an A-plus player for the Bulls, but wouldn't shock me if he is moved at the deadline because it feels like he's just fit to be on a good contending team coming off the bench to spell like Alperen Şengün or something like that with the Rockets. Like some kind of guy like that is who I feel like Jalen Smith should be coming off the bench for, not a team that's the 10 seed and kind of hopeless right now in the Eastern Conference. All right, what are we going to be talking about? Let's do that segment right here.
This is what you'll be talking about.
I think we're going to go back to Zach Collins here. Again, what you'll be talking about, Zach Collins, what he means for when Vooch gets back. Again, another game for Zach Collins where he plays good basketball for this team. He contributes on the glass, offensively, defensively. He has good moves in the post. Like, he just does everything you want to see. As much as I just said I like Jalen Smith, like, not to talk out both sides of my mouth, I do wonder, where did the Zach Collins minutes go? Because it feels like they found something to at least experiment with to have a guy on your team next year. Again, could be an easy trade candidate for the offseason. But if you're going to keep him on the roster instead of a guy like Vooch, when you think about getting younger, more athletic, which would make a lot more sense, like, you want to see him out there this season too. Like when he, like, think back to when he got traded to the Bulls. The initial report was he's going to be the only guy left on the team of Herter, Jones, and Collins. And then they all were there. And then the immediate report after that was, after the deadline passed, was, well, he's not going to play because there's no minutes for him. Because the assumption was Vucevic was going to get traded, and those were going to be the Zach Collins minutes. Well, now with Vooch out, and when Jalen Smith is out, he's played good basketball. And I think the one thing that, like, if you're watching these games and you're locked in, it's just like, where do the minutes for Zach Collins go? And the other thing I was talking about, again, it's the dunks from Modest Buzelis because they're fun. It's just something that gives us joy in a season of losses. It feels like Modest Buzelis is leading the charge for those moments. All right, in the next segment, A-plus tank loss, best and worst moments of the game, our play-in update, and where the Bulls currently stand with the lottery. We'll get into all that next here on the Locked On Bulls postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone. And before you know it, you're juggling customer calls all night, all day and night. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That's where OpenPhone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help you work on your keep your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, cost of a few coffees, you can get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. OpenPhone works with an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba for 20% off 6 months. openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have an existing number with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. This is what you define a game as an A-plus tank loss. You're competitive, you're playing against a good team, but in the end, you ultimately lost this game, something that you want the Bulls to do the rest of the season. If you haven't heard this spiel from me before, I would rather watch a team like this Bulls team than what is going on in Philadelphia, where they have given up, they're a disaster. At least the Bulls are playing hard every single night and being competitive with a team like the Cavs, because I do think it just gives us, again, opportunity to see like the idea of a core of a basketball team for the Chicago Bulls as you try to improve versus what Philly's going through, which is 2 of the worst contracts, if not the 2 worst contracts in the NBA right now. So this is an A-plus tank loss for the Bulls, especially because on this night, you look at the standings currently, the Philadelphia 76ers, they got smoked as well. So you're 2.5 games up on the Philadelphia 76ers right now. You're 2.5 games up on both the Sixers and the Nets coming to this one. They both lost. So nothing changes in terms of the play-in, the lottery odds for those two teams in front of you. Everything stays as status quo as the 76ers lost to the Timberwolves and the Brooklyn Nets lost to the San Antonio Spurs. That one is important a little bit because when you look at Tankathon, just to get an idea of where the Bulls currently stand in terms of the lottery, the Spurs are right there as a team that could pass you. They're only 3 games back now. So now they're 3 games back or behind you in terms of moving up in the lottery. So this is actually one where kind of works out well, at least in one of your favors for the Bulls. Probably want to still find a way to like have Brooklyn and Philly pass you, but again, it feels like this team is just destined to be a play-in team because of the way everything has played out this season. Best moments of the game, the alley-oop to Buzelis was great. A couple nice little buzzer beaters. We had 2 of them from the shot clock. The first one from THT, the next one from Kobe White. Jalen Smith gets a buzzer beater at the end of the quarter, but was at the third with 0.2 seconds left. It landed on the clock. So a couple clutch shots from this one from him, THT, and Kobe White on the night tonight. So those are good moments as well. The worst is just the three-point shooting, 25% from 3. It's a disaster. It's not good. They shouldn't keep shooting them, but they will. It's just what the Chicago Bulls have decided to do this season. All right, to wrap up every single show, we do our Tankathon spin. We've done this a handful of times now just to see where the Bulls land in the lottery, because that'll be our way to officially predict where the Bulls lottery balls will officially fall. Last time we did this for the first time, we hit Sim Lottery, and the Bulls ended up with the 8th pick in the NBA draft, which is where they currently stand in terms of odds. So we hit Sim Lottery, and the Chicago Bulls land the 3rd pick in the 2025 NBA draft. They have 26.3% chance to land a top 4 pick. This one's hilarious because it has the Spurs landing the 1st pick, and that is just historically ironic if that happens. If they land Cooper Flagg because they sat Wemby in the way they landed Tim Duncan because they sat David Robinson, we will be screaming conspiracy again for the San Antonio Spurs. Why would there be conspiracies for the Spurs in the terrible market? I don't know, but it seems that the NBA seems to like them. So that will do it for this show. Thanks for checking us out. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Bulls and the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channels, as well as the Locked On Bulls audio feed. That's where our audio goes as well. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find these postcast shows there immediately. We're here for every single Cubs, Bears, Bulls, and Notre Dame football game. I almost forgot the fourth team we do these for. So Bears, Bulls, Cubs, and Notre Dame football all on this channel. So thanks for watching. Thanks for checking us out. The Bulls lose 139-117 to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We will talk to you after the next game. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Peace.